So in this proof, we want to prove that ADEC is a rhombus. And the simplest way to prove something a rhombus is usually to show that all the sides are congruent, which is what we're going to try to do here. We can start, because of the fact that we got two triangles congruent, by knowing that AC is congruent to AD by CPCTC, or congruent parts, or corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And that's a great way to start. You've already got two of the four shown that they're congruent. Well, when we usually try to prove other triangles congruent, or other parallelogram proof we've done before, it's helpful to prove these two triangles are congruent. So to do that, we're going to take advantage of the fact that BC and BD are also congruent. And so, so we know that also by CPCTC. And then because of this, we know that these two angles are congruent. And so that gives us that now triangle ACB is congruent to triangle EDB. And we know that because of we're not there yet. Before we prove that those two triangles are congruent, we also have to show that the vertical angles are congruent. So we're going to say that angle ABC is congruent to angle DBE because vertical angles are congruent. And so now we've shown that we have the two vertical angles are congruent, the two angles that are given to us are congruent, and then the BC is congruent to BD. And so from that, we can show that triangle BCA is congruent to triangle BDE. And that's by angle, side, angle. And so by angle, side, angle, the two triangles are congruent to each other. Now, from there, we know that AC is congruent to DE, also by CPCTC. And so now we've shown that these three are all congruent. And so the last thing to do is show this is congruent. Well, to do that, we also need to put AB is congruent to BE, or something like this. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. And so now we know that if AB is congruent to BE, and we know that BD is congruent to BC, and we've got another pair of vertical angles. And so let's go ahead and include that here. I'll number them 1 and 2. So angles 1 and angle 2 is congruent by vertical angles. So I can put that back in this step. And so then because of that, and then the fact that we know that AB is congruent to BE, and we know that BC is congruent to BD, we can prove that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle EBC, and that is by side, angle, side, because this time we use the sides, these two sides, and then the sides BD and BC, and then the vertical angles. And so then we now have AD is congruent to CE, and so by CPCTC. And so now what we've shown is these two are congruent, these two are congruent to each other, and then AC is congruent to AD. And so that gives us AC is congruent to AD, is congruent to CE, is congruent to DE. And so that is enough to show that ADEC is a rhombus because of the definition, which is if all four sides are congruent, then it's a rhombus. And so that's just definition of rhombus is our reason for that. So again, the thought process behind this is to use these congruent triangles inside a parallelogram and a rhombus to prove things about it. And that's almost always the direction you're going to go when you're doing proofs about quadrilaterals and rhombuses and parallelograms and things like that.